This is Dr. Sadasivam once again with you. And today we will be talking about some of the rudiments of artificial intelligence, data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and host of things that are much being talked about these days. Of course, we will not be getting into the technical details of what they are, but at the outset, we will be touching upon some of the basic concepts of these, and I'm sure that would lay a foundation for each one of you to explore that particular subject in greater detail and come to speed with what is happening now. Great. So the Second World War ended with bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And it was Germans who started the war, and Germans were completely defeated in this war. They were completely butchered. But Germany had one of the strongest navy in the world. And in the year 1950, the Allied forces got hold of some of the communication equipments of the Germans, and they started decoding some of the communication systems. That was when a great person by name Alan Duran, that was his name, he made a very famous statement, and that statement was, can we make the machines to think like human beings? One of the most important quotes which became very, very famous, and from then on, you started these encryptions, codings, decodings from the initial beginning of your computers. Those were the starting stage of your computers, first generation, second generation, especially in the field of computers by a company called as IBM, right? So typically when you talk about artificial intelligence, your deep learning, data science, data analytics, these things are not new. They have been there in existence for many, many decades, and every time a new fad comes into the picture, we give various names to it, and that is, artificial intelligence as we know now. And before I start this particular session, I would like to ask you a few questions. To answer this question yourself, what is the population of the total world? Think about it. I suggest you can take out a notebook, and I will keep asking a lot of questions like this. You can keep answering those questions in your notebook. If you have answered it as 7.5 billion, you are right, okay? 7 billion. 1,000 billion is 1 trillion, right? So now you can judge the scale of it, just at 7 billion, right? 7.5 billion population. What is the population of India? Put it down. If you have written 1.2, 1.25, you're fairly right? In the whole world, every 1 in 7th person born in the world is an Indian. Now, when we talk about artificial intelligence, how many devices are there in the whole world? Devices. Approximately. If you are considering a 7.5 billion population, all right? Keep it 7 billion for easy calculations. How many devices may be there? A lot of participants say 2 devices per person generally. Write it. Put your own viewpoints there. Approximately, statistics says that it is 4 times more. All right. So approximately 7 4s are 28. 28 billion devices. These devices had always existed, even before the advent of internet. Any idea when internet came into this world? Approximately, take a guess, write that down in your notepad. We guys have seen the whole transition, right? From post to telegrams to internet, right? People used to send letters in cards, open cards. We talk lot about privacy these days, and those days everything used to be out in the open, like cards. We talk a lot about privacy, your WhatsApp codes getting encrypted, decrypted, and all that. Devices used to be there, communication used to be there, telegrams used to be there, but internet made a difference in terms of connected devices. What made it possible was this advent of internet. And the internet has been in existence for the last 3 decades, but this interconnectedness that we are talking about is a recent trend in the last 10-15 years. That is because of availability of something called as bandwidth, that is data. And that is where we talk about 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. Scams have happened because we were never aware that such things existed. Your spectrum is not a product like Apple. Take this Apple, 1 kg, 100 rupees. It is spectrum. It is thin air. You can't see anything. But that money can earn you lakhs and lakhs of crores of rupees. We all have heard about this 2G scam, 3G scam. Can you imagine how much was the scam that people are talking about? The 2G scam we are talking about. How much was the total money involved in that scam? Put that down. Let me give you a perspective. It is alleged that it was somewhere around 1,76,000 rupees. We don't want to discuss politics here, but we are all aware of 2G scams, 1,76,000 crores. You might think 1,76,000. You take 10 lakhs from the dealer and ask for your CS card. You ask the dealer, show me the card. I want to see the color. I want to see the seats. But here we are talking about 1,76,000. And if you ask them, show me the product, that product is not visible. It is thin air. You are just given a license to communicate through that thin air. And that's what the whole story is about, guys. Typically, because of this 2G technology, 3G technology, not just that, your cell phones have been there in existence for the last 25 years. I remember when I was in Maruti, I used to have the cell phone in 1995. What is the difference between your cell phones in 95 and your cell phones today? Put that down in a paper. What is the difference? So the major change is in terms of your technology, because everything we talk about, your size, your RAM, your capacity, etc. They are all pertain to hardware and technology. But when we talk about these interconnected devices, the large part of that has been because of the price of usage. I'm not talking about the price of the instrument. I'm talking about the usage. I remember when way back in 1995, I was given an allowance of 1,000 rupees. That was in Maruti when I was in sales. In 1995, you could have purchased a flat in Goregaon right near the railway station for 20-25 lakh rupees those days. That was the time we are talking about. You can get a beautiful 3-bedroom flat in Goregaon right near the railway station, and we're talking of 1,000 rupees per month, right? Because every minute you take a call, hi, how are you? I will speak to you later. You will be charged 10 rupees. Now technology has changed. Everything has changed. The prices has come down. Prices of everything else has gone up. Your tomato, edible oil, car, televisions, everything has gone up at a compounded annual growth rate of 6-7% inflation is what we're talking about. But if you look at the communications costs, that has come down like anything. And today, even 4 or 5 years back, we used to subscribe 1 GB of data for 300, 400 rupees. And now, 500 rupees for 3 months. You can have daily 2 GB of data, daily 5 GB of data. And that's how the communication costs have come down. And this reduction of communication costs has resulted in interconnected devices and the communication growing up exponentially, logarithmically, something that nobody imagined ever in the world. And such has been the pace of its growth, and that has given rise to a lot of things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, data science, big data analytics. What are these we are talking about? We are talking of crores and crores of MBs of data, and that is how I'm going to give you a broad idea. What is data analytics? So we're going to get into the meat of what it is, right? I'm going to discuss that. And today it's somewhere around 25 billion devices for a population of 7 billion. We're talking about the population of the world, and in the next 2 or 3 years, it is expected to double in number, guys. That's 50 billion devices interconnected. Now, I'm going to imagine if all these are interconnected, every telephone communicates with the other one. Can you imagine the kind of data that is getting generated in the process, right? Enormous amount of data is going to be created. It is something about 15 hexabytes. I'm only talking about Google, which preserves all these data. In Google, they handle somewhere around 15 hexabytes of data. 15 hexabytes of data means, I'll try to give you a perspective. You have a laptop, and can you imagine what is the capacity of that laptop? Put that out. 500 GB, if I can say that. 500 GB. There are some which are 1 TB also, but we're talking about a normal one. How many photographs can you store in that? Approximately. I don't know, but let's imagine too many, 1 crore maybe. We don't know. Now imagine if you have 15 million such computers, 15 million such computers, then what will be the computing capacity of that computer, which is 15 million times? That is the computational power of Google as a company, right? You can now imagine. I'm sure you will think that it is extremely important, and that is exactly where artificial intelligence come into picture. So before we get into the subject of artificial intelligence, I would like to ask you a few questions. What do you mean by this word intelligence? Some people call it smartness. Then I'm asking you, what is the difference between smartness and intelligence? Put it down in a piece of paper. Some people might say doing a task in a more intelligent way, in a more efficient way. These are some of the questions. Now, if I ask you a question, is SHAHRUKH Khan smart or intelligent? Some people might say both, right? My next question to you is, what is the difference between mind and brain? Put that down in your paper. What does the brain look like? How does the mind look like? Does it have a form? Think about it. Somebody falls in love. Is that happening in the mind, or is something is happening in the heart? Guys, don't say you don't have any experience in this area, right? Brain is a physical entity, whereas mind is an intangible phenomenon. When you talk about mind, it is nothing but a series of neurochemical interactions which are happening inside. Neurochemical interactions. That's the biochemistry which is happening within us. We're going to talk a lot about biological intelligence and artificial intelligence, right? Biological intelligence is different and artificial intelligence is different. Is there a difference between neurons? What is neurons? What are those, neurochemical interactions taking place? Because that's what makes every human being things, right? Human beings think, right? We're talking about neurons. There are two things. One is biological intelligence. The second we are talking about is artificial intelligence. I'm trying to set the basic foundation of artificial intelligence. So I'm going to share certain information so that it's easier for you to, build more information. And that is why I'm trying to come up with lots and lots of real life examples. Typically, we are talking of two things, artificial intelligence and biological intelligence. So when you talk about things from a biological perspective, we have neurons in our mind constantly interacting with each other. For example, if I see a person, I'm able to recognize that person. If I hear a voice, I'm able to identify that it belongs to that particular person. Now you tell me how from the sound I'm able to make out that it is that specific person. For example, your mom calls you and says, "What are you doing?" Immediately you are able to recognize that it's your mom or dad. Now tell me, what is that mechanism? That it is your father or it is your brother. So initially, it's a question of some kind of a data which is stored in your brain, either in the form of a visual clip or a sound clip. Everything is getting stored in your brain, right? When you were a child, imagine you were just 1 month old. How did you know that it was your mom? How did you know that it was your auntie? So every time you converse, the child keeps on hearing the voice of his or her mother. And over a period of time, the child understands that it's the mother's voice. Because when the mother says, the child obeys even at that time. So it's more a question of repeated iterations, and that's how we started learning new things right from our childhood, right? And history. We say that the world is 40 billion years old, and in this 40 billions of years of old, and we have had in this evolutionary biology, starting with your Iron Man, caveman, Homo sapiens, and today we are what we are, evolved human beings after 40 billion years, right? That's the history of mankind. So we have a learning curve. When we talk about learning, there are three important aspects to it, which are the input, the process, and the output. Typically, when you hear something for the first time, there is an input that is coming into you, and that input gets processed in your brain. And then it results in an output. The output could be that the child is crying, the mother is saying input, process, and the child stops crying. Input, process, and output. This is a very important concept. In mathematics parlance, you have a lot of inputs coming. We have something called as f of x, which is a function of x, right? Those of you who are engineers who can understand, this concept. For example, area is a function, but area of a circle is a function of a radius. That's mathematical language. So even in artificial intelligence, it's something similar to that. As far as the biological intelligence is concerned, it works on the principle of breathing, which is the physical world, and there is some computation which is going on inside. And the output is what is fed in as an input once again. So it is a closed loop system. closed loop system, and in mathematics we call it as iterations. Single iteration, double iterations, three iterations. You can have thousands and thousands of iterations. These are all mathematical language. Okay, so which is why we asked about iteration. Don't worry, we won't go too deep into it, right? But these iterations are important because input, process, output, and the output is once again fed as input, right? Remember the cycle, because this forms the basis of artificial intelligence. Now answer this question. Is a 25-year-old boy intelligent or a 10-year-old boy intelligent? Everyone says 25-year-old boy is intelligent. Why? Because he's exposed more. There are more of inputs, processing, output, once again fed into his brain as input, and over a period of time he learns. The learning curve, he gets more and more experience, right?